Yeah, my bad point actually is the recent performance of Falcons. I think that, you know, I don't know what we expected from Falcons. Obviously, we heard that there was a lot of stuff going on, that they wanted to sign Nico Monesi, like have this big super team, and eventually, you know, ended up having a core of ENS players, and most recently now they added Dupree with obviously with Magic's before. I just think that team, in terms of players on paper, you should be able to perform way better than what you're doing. Looking at ENS at their core that they had, the 3 players, and the period that they had like prior to joining Falcons was like constant top 3, top 4, top 5. Like they were moving in that area for quite a long time, and them going to Falcons, I don't know what is going on in that team, but I think everyone has seen that YouTube clip of them talking right before they lost against, I think it was against FaZe on the major, when they were like 1-1. I don't know, like I just get a very bad vibe in regard to that, because I have a lot of respect for Zonic. Like I think me and him, we've known each other for a very long time, and I've said a couple of times, like I would me as a coach, I would always want to be a head coach, but if there's one guy that I would be willing to be assistant coach for, that would be that guy, because I have a lot of respect for him. But what I wanted to say is, in regards to their recent performance, is just looking at how they dealt with Boros, that mouse change mid tournament. That's I agree, that was a super bad thing, but I think the way they handle it, like right after a game, I don't know. The mental coach, I think he said something about it's very important that we air out, that we talk about things. And I'm very confident to say that I don't agree with that. And
you are Swedish, to be fair. I'll just put that out again. You are not really the Swedish way to sort of all get in a circle and say you fucked up like that. Kind of right.
Yeah, but the reason why, and I must say this,
Okay.
The reason why is, I think CS is a game that there's a lot of emotions after a game. And I think in any relationship, if it's with the family or girlfriend, wife, whatever, like when you are upset, there's a lot of emotions in that discussion. And then, you end up, being mad at each other. And then, 2-3 hours goes by, and then you're like, oh, I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry. And then you kind of become more rational. And I think in CS, I think it's really important to be rational also, because when you're, doing these things right after a game, when there is so much emotions to it, if you can't control your emotions, don't do it, because you have 5 players. You don't have 7, 8, 9 players that you can just, okay, this guy is mentally out of it, let's remove him and let's add this player. Like I think we're comparing too many times with other sports and how they interact, and like, okay, they do it that in basketball or in football or in soccer, whatever, and we should be able to do it in CS also. Yeah, but you're forgetting about the fact that in basketball they have like 15 players or 12. If that guy's not listening, bring that guy in. And I think that's like something that in regards to that recent performance of Falcons, I think like the whole vibe of that team just feels really off, and it doesn't make any sense in regards to that they have 3 players from ENS that played really good with ENS, and now they have like Dupree and Magisk, and I think Magisk is like a super good player instead of Disha or how I should pronounce it. And then obviously it's Dupree versus Nerds, which also maybe is not the best player for it. I would love if Falcons actually dare to go a bit YOLO and sign an upcoming player. I think Boros was that kind of guy, but I think they just messed up the whole atmosphere in that team, and yeah, it hasn't looked good at all lately, to be honest.
I don't really usually take the comments at face value from teams that say, "Oh, we're a family," but for whatever reason, actually, now that because the thing is that so many teams kind of say that, and it's just kind of BS, and it's just PR stuff. Like, but one team that we already praised was Mouse, and Mouse are a team where they are 5 friends. They legitimately are 5. Like they even the fit in terms of getting Brol in there for getting another 21-year-old to basically replace a 21-year-old. Like they're all on the same page, and I never really thought of like the vibe check necessarily on Falcons, but yeah, no, you're actually spot on with the fact that it feels more like 5 hired guns as opposed to a more organically constructed team. But that being said, there are cases where 5 hired guns can still succeed and do well. I would say like past iterations of the phase lineup which didn't necessarily seem like they had the best sort of out of server chemistry could still come together and win trophies. So for Falcons to be doing this bad, I mean, there's a lot of things I guess you could point to the vibes of the team being off. But I'd say like the thing that I really boil it down to, because I've watched back some Falcons rounds pretty closely in the past and try to really just understand what are they doing differently that's so wrong versus other teams that are winning and have honestly sometimes just weaker players, or you would think that they're weaker players. And it's kind of like every time it just feels like anytime someone's on a solo sort of hold, like any of them, I just almost find that there's no pop-off potential from individuals. Like the multi-fragging ability from some of these guys is flat out non-existent. Like if I see Magis get back Silo, he's probably one of the few guys I really trust on this team who can maybe get a kill and stay alive. But when it comes to practically everybody else, I've seen moments where people just get instantly shot in the face because they're not expending the sort of in-game effort to just jiggle things properly, to like crouch swing. Like one of the reasons that Donk is such a phenom is that he does all these little mechanical tricks to try to just make sure he stays alive a little bit longer, make it hard for his opponents to kill him. And I just don't see that from some of the individuals. And so, the term firepower is kind of a lazy way of describing what it's like. It's too broad of a term to say what's wrong. And it's almost just like the amount of mechanical effort that these individual players put into the game just seems so much lower than a lot of like you're saying Nert's 1-to-1 with Dupree. I mean, dude, I just see Dupree standing still sometimes. Like the dude's just standing still holding an angle. It's like in CS2, really, against the best opposition, like you're basically asking to be pre-aimed and just shot in the face if you're gonna do that. Whereas Nert's would just do it's just a little, the difference is just AD on your keyboard. That's all you have to do. And I see Falcons guys just not doing that. They're just standing still.
I would just say this, like the main problem in Falcons is every single thing you hear people critique them always comes back to the fucking Boros documentary clip. Like, people make out like Zonic himself uploaded that to the internet. Like, that is literally the Falcons org's failure. That should never, ever have gotten out. Like, even if, Peter, we disagree of like, what's a healthy environment, stuff, that should never be on the internet, though. That stays in the locker room, that's another sports concept. Like, even if we're a team like Virtus Pro that always argues and we're all Polish and spicy, you don't put that fucking video on the internet, though. Like, you keep that as a private thing where we can have a disagreement, but we don't want, like, imagine if, like, look, yeah, you might remember, actually, from back in the day, I did upload a famous video when they were the Golden Five. It was when they had Pasha standing in, though, where they did do arguing like that, like, and someone translated it from Polish, and it famously did say all the shit, like, you fucking piss drinker, why have you thrown that flash to my face, right? But here's the thing, that was so long ago, no one complained like professionalism now. And then also, when they were in CS2 versus Pro, there was nothing like that. Like, if they'd have had, like, the slumps that they would have in VP, but there'd have been videos like that, where, like, I mean, remember there was that famous scrim leak where it was, like, fucking Pasha and, it was Bialy and Snacks, like, trash talking Taz, like, in the fucking chat of, like, the scrim or something. If you'd have had stuff like that, people would have endlessly made, like, drama, like a soap opera, like, well, that's the reason why, look at the way he's talking to him. Whereas, like, I think that's half your problem right there. So people already want this team to fail because they think it's a soap opera and they're all the bad guys, and so the bad guys deserve to fail. Then there's the whole angle that because they're the Saudi team with all the millions of dollars, people also want them to fail. Even though, I'll just throw this out there. Here's the part I don't get. Right, individually, don't all of you like Magisk? You loved him when he was on Astralis and fucking Vitality. Everyone loves Dupree. In fact, you're all going out your way to not say. Here's what's weird. Dupree just got a job again. He's playing actually pretty decent. Not anywhere close to his old level, but pretty decent. No one goes, ha! Dupree fucking sucks. What a loser joining Falcons. But then collectively their thought is, Falcons fucking blows. They should just pack it up. It's like, how do you manage to love the players and hate on them at the same time? So the weird thing is, I do want this team to work so badly because some of the players, I think most of the players are pretty good. But this is where coaches hate my style of analysis, because I actually think teams like this prove that coaching can only take you so far in the game. And what I mean is this. Most coaches because they don't have a Ziwu, a Nico, a fucking Simple. They don't want it to be that there are these things called star players. They want to believe that there's just players in roles, and you decide what roles based on the map, based on the team, based on the concept. But what that ignores is those players who I mentioned, who are obviously outliers. Like there aren't many Simple, Nicos, and Monacy. There's like 10 at any one time at most, maybe 3 or 4 sometimes. If you have one of those players, though, your team can just immediately become like twice as good because they hit so hard when they fight in the duel. If they're a T-side player like a fucking Nerds, they just win you a half by themselves sometimes. They can really do that. So I know coaches don't like the superstar theory, but I think this team proves it. Because right now, beyond like people having individual slumps, there are no bad players in this lineup. Like every player, in theory, you could make an argument why he shouldn't be cut from the team. It's actually why I think they're in a really bad spot for 2 reasons. One, they clearly don't have the superstar rifler. There's a reason why the Ents core only banged when it had Spinks and fucking Nerds when they were peaking. Remember when they tried using Valde afterwards? Reminds me a bit of Dupree coming in now. They were all right, but they were nowhere close to as powerful. But every other part of the team stayed the same. You just change these players in and out. But when you have that superstar player, I mean, remember, Spinks was like the number 5 player in the world last year for Vitality, guys. Nerds, if the team does well, he'll be top 10 this year. Like, these players are so good. They don't have that in this team. I mean, obviously, they wanted it to be Nico. They temporarily used Simple. So, like, I get that part, but my opinion is you can only build so much of the floor of the team and so much of the structure. You've also got to eventually like have the stars to win you the games. Like all the teams beating them pretty much have a star player. They have like a big name. And the reason why I say I think they're in a really tough spot is because since, like I say, there's not really any reason you'd cut a specific player right now. I think they're going to be I think they're just going to stick with this lineup for a while, mate, and just run it down. Like, I don't think they're going to do the vicious guy. I'll give you an obvious example. They're one of the teams that on paper probably should have considered getting Blame F, but in their brain, why would we get Blame F? We've got Magisk. If he gets back to form, we don't need him. Yeah, you're right in theory. Why do we need a aggressive rifler Thorin? Don't we have Dupree? He was the best of all time. Well, yeah, but is he going to be now? That's the problem. You're using like old narratives. So I think the thing I'm worried about is this. I have a lot of trust in people like Zonic. I think Snappy's a fabulous IGL. I think over time they can get it together. But I do think, unlike actually the team people think they are, this massive rich team that's just buying all the players, I don't think they are going to make a very immediate roster move. I think they're just going to sort of run this out and hope it works. Whereas I do think, unfortunately, it's why I wanted Dexter to go heroic. I don't care what you think about the player. There's certain players hit so hard in the server, you've got to have one of them at least, you know. You've got to have at least one.
I feel like one thing that I guess when I also watch the Falcons games is that when you say they don't have a star player, that's totally true, and they just don't shoot as hard as some of the teams that are really actually battling legitimately for top 10 in the world. And I feel like it's almost like this with Falcons. When I watch them play, they almost play a style that's like, it's refined, but it's very standard. And I know this is going to sound a little bit crazy, but the results kind of merit crazy. Like if you just keep going down the same route of how you're playing and just want to play good CS overall, I almost just want Falcons to play a little bit more like crazy. And like one of the things that made Navi a little bit better on their T sides, and I think even their individual players would merit in ability, is the fact that they did some kind of gambles through timings. I think Blade had some really, really nifty game plans on T sides where he like players would just literally walk through smokes on timings because they think that what they're doing on another part of the map is eliciting a rotation from the defenders. And I don't really see Falcons with that level of misdirection. I just kind of see standard openers, people kind of going through the motions. And it's cool and all when you have a star player who's going to multi-frag in one instance of just a turning point in the round. But Falcons just don't have that player right now. And I almost just wish they played like this is going to sound stupid when you have these kinds of players in the servers, but you have to change something, because if you just keep going the same route, you will keep losing. I want to see them play a little bit more like, say, a Furia. I want someone to look a little stupid sometimes, because if you can just like do something that's a little bit looser and crazier at the beginning of the round and then just tighten up, because everybody on this team has insane fundamentals once you get into a 3v3, maybe that opener that you had earlier can just get you the in on the round. Because as of right now, if you just keep running your standard like run-of-the-mill, very European basic starters for rounds, you're just going to keep having the same results, which is that pound for pound, your firepower is worse than a lot of these other rosters.
By the way, yeah, go for it. Go on.
Sorry, yeah, I just wanted to add what my Maui said, but I think it all boils down to the confidence of the player. Like with all due respect to Dupree, but I think the fact that you said that he was just standing still and holding an angle instead of, you know, 80-80, like those small details for me tells me that that's a guy that maybe is just, you know, focusing on the team and the practice with the team, compared to, let's say, Donk, who's just fully playing, you know, face it with his friend because he loves to play the game. The same for Monacy. And you can just, you know, just by watching them, you can see that they actually are like really good, like mechanically, the movement and stuff like that. And I think all these factors, you know, that brings them to having super confidence. So they're not afraid of, you know, dry peeking an area, whereas maybe Dupree has, you know, learned that he needs to have that one extra flash or that two flashes to get into that area, which, you know, from an opponent's point of view, that is just, you know, every flashbang, every smoke that lands is just telling, like, we're coming. And I think that's something that, you know, that you need to have that X factor in that team. I remember with the Brazilians in 2016, when they were popping off, it was like, it was known by, you know, the pro scene back then that Fur, you know, he had no rules in that team. Everyone except for Fur had like a strict, you know, this is how we need to do, and this is how we need to react. Fur, you do your shit. And he was like doing all this random stupid shit, which I think every team needs to have. Like I've talked about this on Twitter also regarding Nexa, which will be my later point. But, you know, just the fact that you can do these kind of things, and Nerds obviously did that. Spinks also did that. You know, sometimes CS is not only about macros, but also about, you know, the micro things. And I think that they need to loosen up a little bit and do some mistakes. And that's why I feel it's, you know, sad in that sense that they let go of Boros, because obviously that guy did not have the experience, didn't know, understand the macro point of view as the others, which means for me that that's a guy that's, you know, when he finds the timing, he will go for it. And obviously had super skilled player, and you know, the same age as these younger players like Donk and Monacy, like these guys who actually loves to play CS and doesn't see CS as a 9-to-5 job.
By the way, one last thing I'll throw in there is this, which is, first of all, how are all the like G2 defenders, for example, just going to let their team have like fucking month after month after month after month after month with the same lineup and never get like the accomplishments at the top of their level they want? But then with Falcons, I've noticed you all do this mad thing, which is everyone else understands that when a roster changes, it changes how the team fundamentally, but everyone's pretending that never happened, Maui. Like, why is everyone pretending that Boros was here the whole time? Boros left after fucking the RMR guys. Like, you do know Simple was played his only ever CS2 official, and it was one online series against, by the way, anyone who goes against Metaport, you don't know online CS then if you think they're bombs. You literally don't watch online CS if you think that team's bad. Like, online, they clap a whole bunch of squads, mate. What are you talking about? And then more recently, they played Pro League, and they've played 2 maps at this new. They've actually played, are you ready? 13 land maps with Dupree. So Dupree also, by the way, was off in Preezy, just being chilling, like semi-pro level. But we're all acting like, no, this is it. This is it. Go on the Falcons. Start now. Your shit. Shut the whole project down. It's like, they've had one LAN. One LAN. So, and I think people already also are going way too crazy on this angle. Like, again, like I said earlier, if you have the balls to say Falcons is shit, go ahead and let me know which players are shit. Go ahead and tell me that straight away. Weird, because normally people can't help tripping over themselves telling you every player sucks dick. You won't tell me a single player sucks in this team. Just that mysteriously the org, like you actually think some evil Jafar character out of Aladdin is the one playing the game or something. Like, you know, it's all your favourite players from all those fucking teams, like Ensign, Vitality and Astralis and that, like all those players you love. So I don't get it. So I'm still going to give them time, but I agree. It looks really bad. I even think on Maui's point, that's another flaw I think they have. So this might sound weird, but I actually think a mistake I've seen in their game when they play is they do play like Snappy thinks he has the old Ents, and they're a really tight unit that all play together and know like top CS. And if people don't understand, one of the reasons why you will often get upset by a worse team on the internet is they don't play high-level CS. So there's moments in a game where 2 high-level teams know, like, right, we can't push here because they're like, Orpa's going to be there and they're going to counter flash us, so we won't go there initially, like we'll fake somewhere else. The difference is the other team might not even understand that level of CS. They're much more, let's just fucking peek. And that might work. That might actually bizarrely work. So a flaw I actually do think they have, like Maui was alluding to there, is This team never gets into a fucking 2v2. Because what happens is early in the round, they make like a play that might be like a smart play, but they don't actually have the cohesion and team play to then pull off the rest of the round. So what happens is then when they think like, right, turtle up on the site, like then they just let some bad communication mean someone creeps around an area or someone forgets to watch an angle or something. Like these are things you take for granted when you're at the top level. So I do think there's a lot of pressure on this team. I'll admit they look shit right now. There's no arguing about that. But I also do think like they're in a mess for all sorts of reasons. Like social reasons, people hate them. I think the fact you don't have a star rifle is going to kill you dead in CS2 especially. I also think there's a mega bait and switch no one could have known. How could anyone know CS2 would be this reliant on fragging? Like when we're talking earlier about teams like fucking Mouse. Guys, Mouse have like 4 players who have fragging numbers like the best player on Falcons. Like, I don't care who Snappy and Zonic are. You're not a fucking miracle worker, mate. You've got to have the pieces in the game. And in CS2 especially, I do think you've got to have a lot of firepower. You've got to have a lot of people who frag out. Like, especially those T-side riflers, by the way. If you don't have T-side riflers, good luck fucking winning best of 3 in CS2. You're not going to win many.
To see more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content, well, subscribe to this channel then, or, you know, be a pleb and don't.